Howdy, hey, happy Tuesday, family. Look, I have missed you all, and I'm excited to be on here today to talk about this topic because this topic has been requested for a while, and I was trying to figure out when it was going to make sense to cover it. So, if you're here, of course, you want to know how to make that first 100K as an enrolled agent. And let me start off by saying this because with inflation, the economy is crazy. There will be a lot of people that will scoff and say $100,000 isn't a lot of money. And relatively speaking, compared to 10 years ago, it's not as much money. You can't do as much with it, but hitting that first $100,000 is still an accomplishment. And if you haven't hit it yet, that is something to work towards. And just remember, if somebody is looking down at you making $100,000, they either are not happy with what they're doing themselves or they haven't actually done it yet. So don't let anybody look down on you with that. Making $100,000 in your own business and figuring that out is definitely an accomplishment. Now, I've been asked to do $100,000. I've been asked to do $1 million. And here's the thing. I don't believe in teaching you something that I haven't done myself because then it's all theory, right? I haven't hit $1 million yet. I haven't hit 750 yet. So, for that reason, I'm not going to get on here and do a video about that because I just be blowing smoke. And I know that's what we're used to people on the internet doing nowadays, but that's not going to be me. So, for those of you that have hopped on already, if you're new around here, my name is Timalyn Bowens and I'm America's favorite EA. I'm also the owner of Bowens Tax Solutions, which is a virtual firm based in Louisville, Kentucky. And what I'm using today as our case study for how to make $100,000 as an enrolled agent. So before I get too far into this, I am going to say some hellos. Make sure if you are on LinkedIn that you are giving StreamYard permission to share your comments because I do have LinkedIn pulled up over here. But sometimes I don't get to engage with my LinkedIn people because their comments don't come over. All right. So let's see. We have Joseph Perkins. He says, "Thank you, Lord, for this knowledge in advance." Right? Somebody had to go through it so they could teach it. Thanks for hopping on, Joseph. Joseph is a member of the How to Start an Enrolled Agent Firm group that I have. If you were interested in that community, let me know down in the comments and I can drop a link with that information. Avinash says, nice. Kendra, good morning to you. I'm going to pronounce it right. It's May. May is also a member of the community. Thanks for hopping on live today. DeLacy is a new member of the community. Thanks for hopping on. Miss Dorothy, how are you doing today? I'm just making sure I'm good on LinkedIn real quick. Which if I would have looked at the comments, I would know. My tax sister is in the building. Hey girl, hey, Miss Lysandra Everett. Let me know too down in the comments. Was it last? No, it wasn't even last week. I think 2-3 weeks ago, I did an installment agreement course over at the Everett Tax Institute. Hang on. I think it's Everett Tax Institute. Lysandra, you can drop that information in if you want. It was worth 2 CE hours if you do still need CE, which you can never learn too much. You always need CE. But not just my course with installment agreements was over there. Lysandra is about to do one on basis. So if you need CE that's going to actually be in depth and teach you about the concept and not just skim over it, definitely check her community out because I believe they have a roundtable now and the monthly CE. Miss Dorothy said, did I enjoy my time off? So here's the thing with this time off. Before, when it was planned, I traveled a little bit with my family. Going back, I was on a plane every 10 to 14 days this summer. So these last 2 weeks I took off, I just needed a break, period. Who knew that traveling so much would make you tired, right? But I just needed to clear my head, make sure the content things were in place to end the year. Because I have some exciting things that I'm looking forward to telling you guys about at America's Favorite EA.com and over at Bowens Tax Solutions. So it was a much needed rest, just so I wasn't forced to rest later. Deja, what is up? Hey, boss lady. I'm used to seeing you over on Facebook. Lysandra says it is absolutely an accomplishment to hit your first six figures. It lets you know it's possible. Amen. And in addition to that, and I'm going to get into this a little bit later, like it's almost like getting your first paycheck, but times 10, right? Because getting that first client is exciting. But then when you actually get $100,000, and I'm going to talk about this too, depending on the services you're offering, I don't want to say it's easy with tax preparation, but it's definitely easier because everybody has to get their taxes done, right? But what I'm going to talk about today is when you take tax preparation out of the equation and you focus only on tax representation, because that $100,000 isn't going to happen. It's not going to be happenstance. You have to be very intentional, in the marketing that you do to attract those types of clients is going to be different. And your workflow process to keep them in, to keep them engaged on top of stuff so you can get them out of your pipeline is going to be completely different. So we're going to talk a little bit about what that structure looks like for the marketing side and then that workflow process. And then I'm going to let you all go. School starts here this week. My baby, we got to go meet the teacher in a little bit. So I'm not going to go over an hour today. I'm not even going to take a whole hour. You guys don't have questions. So let me see. I got somebody that says, "Hi, Timalyn. It's a LinkedIn user. Just a reminder, LinkedIn folks, make sure that you are giving me permission." I think it is tax and accounting professional. Is it Papia? Says, "Hi, Timlin. Good morning to you. I think you're a first timer, so welcome to the live stream." All right. So LinkedIn, I'm getting a lot of comments. I'm not going to be able to go through all of these and give shout outs because I do want to get into the material, but different LinkedIn user says, "Thanks for this webinar. You are definitely welcome." Sorry. So, good morning, Miss Alita. Jackie, not oh, good morning. So, LinkedIn folks, make sure, in addition to the comments, I love it. I love engaging with you guys. Make sure that you like this as well, just so the LinkedIn algorithm knows that other tax professionals will want to see this. And thank you, folks on YouTube. So, first things first. Sorry. I have a question that says, "Kindly provide in-depth knowledge of how to get clients remote via being a remote firm." So that is not something I'm going into depth in today. Make sure I would subscribe to the YouTube channel because there's a series, "How to Start an Enrolled Agent Firm," and there will be information about how to do that virtually. I'm not going to have no time to go into that today, not in as much depth. I will talk about being a remote firm today, though. But first things first, when we're looking at how to make $100,000 as an enrolled agent, when we look at the average salary, and I just looked at the statistic maybe yesterday, I think the average salary right now, and I don't know how long this person has been in the position, etc. It's just average based on what everybody was making in the year, okay, was around $64,000. Now, I know you guys like to fact check me and nobody else, so I'll get the citation. I wanted to point out, if you have the desire to make $100,000 as an enrolled agent, It's possible to do it as an employee for sure, but you're most likely going to do that if you have your own firm. Or even if you don't have a firm, but you are working as a contractor with other companies, but still on your own. The next thing I want to talk about, though, is actually defining what that $100,000 looks like. So here's the thing that I didn't even know this was a thing with different people on social media. They will tell you that they made a certain amount of money, but they're not talking cash money in the bank. Very confusing to me. We have to define what $100,000 is and what your goal is with that. Okay. If you were saying that you want to gross $100,000, that's awesome. If you are saying you want to profit $100,000, that's awesome too. If you were saying that you want to make the conversion to an S corp and pay yourself a salary of $1,000, that's fine and dandy as well. But we have to be specific about what your goal with $100,000 is before we can actually create a plan to reach that, right? You got to write the vision, make it plain. And for those of you interested, on LinkedIn, Lysandra did just drop the link to the installment agreement course that I did over there at ETS Tax Institute. But like I said, there is a membership where you get monthly CE, and I believe, like I said, there's a roundtable now as well. Um, if you guys would like to see Lysandra on my channel to talk about the importance of continuing education, drop that down in the comments too. I've been tugging at my tax sister, and she's been on the channel before. We just got to get something worked out um, with our schedules. But yes, go check that out. Um, let's get back to this $100,000. With these folks on social media, they will say they made a certain amount, but then they say there is an amount that's booked and an amount that's banked. When I'm talking about how to make $100,000, baby, I don't want to know what you booked, because saying you booked something is like saying you wrote an estimate for it and then it didn't actually convert into a sale. You can write estimates all day. You can't pay bills with estimates. Okay. Accounts receivable, that's an asset, but an estimate hasn't converted yet. So when you're following people, make sure you understand how they are defining it. Uh-oh. So Lysandra, actually, you know what? I'll do this. Lysandra, they're saying they cannot click the link, but I will take care of that. If you are on my email list, I have another course that's coming up at the end of this month that is a CE eligible course. I'm going to send out the information for that today. I'll send out a separate email with the information with the course and ETS Tax Institute information. Okay. So if you can't click it, go old school, copy and paste it into your browser. But I will send that information out because actually, now I'm thinking about it, I know I posted it. I can't remember if I sent it to my email list or not. But yeah, I'll take care of that. So good morning, Tessa. Tessa says, say it. But seriously, like, you have to pay attention to who you're following to say, oh, I can teach you how to do this, I can teach you how to do that. Because one, if they haven't done it, it is all theory. Now, there are going to be certain things that people will know how to do and they haven't done it yet, right? But when it comes to making money, I want to roll with the person who's actually done it before, not the false prophet or the person who's in theory that is just shooting at the hip, right? Let's look for the purposes or the purpose of this live. Let's look at grossing your first 100,000, and then let's look at what it would look like to net your first 100,000. Okay? Because you will see people say, well, all you have to do is go out there and do the work, and the 100,000 is easy. Let me dare disagree. Okay? Making that first $100,000 is such a big accomplishment because it's not easy. It's easy in theory. Breaking down the numbers is easy, but you still have to go out there and do the work. And like I said, tax representation versus tax preparation is completely different because you're not going to see people online saying, hey, I owe the IRS $50,000. Who you got that helps you? Versus December through probably April, you constantly see people posting, I'm in search for a new CPA. Who do you got? I need my taxes done. Who do you got? So it's easier to farm those people. It's easier to talk about general topics to attract those people. Whereas tax representation is something that people may not even engage with on your page just because of the shame that comes with that, right? And correct me if I'm wrong. If you guys see folks posting online that they owe the IRS, let me know cuz maybe I'm in the wrong social circles, right? So let's look at the numbers. If you're not familiar with tax representation, you're like, what's the difference between tax representation and preparation? Tax preparation is going to be something that is after the fact, the year's over, the client has their tax documents. You are reporting what happened financially in their life to the IRS to figure out how much they owe in taxes, right? So we know we put the W-2s in to show different wages. We are putting in mortgage interest statements to reduce those taxes. We're putting in student loan interest to reduce those. Then at the end, we let the IRS know, okay, maybe they had a child, maybe they got married, and this is what the financial status is in their house. And based on this criteria, this is how much they owe in tax. Well, on the representation side, we're looking at that financial situation from a different point of view, right? Because when you file your taxes, there are certain things that you can deduct, but the IRS doesn't care about your mortgage, right? They don't care about your utility bill. When we represent clients, this is going to be before the IRS to tell what their financial story is. What you are authorized to do essentially is to step in their shoes to handle the IRS situation. So let me give you an example. I have a client right now who loves to go to casinos to eat, gamble, loves the hotels, right? Well, they were audited for 3 years because they did not report their gambling winnings. Okay. Now, the person that they were with was like, hey, you underreported, just sign this, say that you agreed to it. And that was it. They had them in the meeting with the auditor, they had to speak for themselves. Now, that never would have happened over at Bowens Tax Solutions. With representation, what should have happened was the tax professional should have gotten the story from the client and asked the right questions. So, they were audited for 3 years, I believe 15, 16, 17. They received a notice in 21. They came to me this year because of YouTube and they said, hey, I want to work with you. I looked at the notices that they received. I looked at the audit findings. And what happened, I was able to see that there was income missing. So, based on that, I knew what questions to ask to say, hey, did you gamble at these places? Hey, did you have any losses? And this client was actually a unicorn because he was able to go directly to his different accounts and get all of the losses. So what happened is he got messed up in the tax preparation side. So then he needed representation because he knew he had the losses, but he did not know how to communicate that with the IRS. So what happened, we went through each year. I found the losses. I found years where he had already paid, and to figure out, okay, what can you get a refund back from where you paid, where you really didn't have to because you had losses to offset these winnings. And I responded to the recent notices. Okay. The audit, a lot of that stuff was paid over 2 years ago. So trying to get a refund would be faulty. But he hired me to represent him because he's like, I already tried to argue this and I lost. So with the representation, I make the argument that, hey, he doesn't actually owe this tax, and here's why. And because I have a tax power of attorney, he doesn't have to be on this call to talk about this. I'm authorized to do that for him. So when we look at that service, that's way more in depth than me actually preparing the tax return to say what happened up front, because I'm having to spend time with the client and say, hey, what happened this year? Oh, you like this casino? You remember who you were with on this trip? You remember how much you lost? Oh, can you log into XYZ account? And then I take that information, I put it in whatever format the IRS is requesting. I submit it to them. I check in to make sure that it's processed. I check in to make sure that the refund's there. I am acting on behalf of the client, which means there's a greater responsibility, there's a greater liability, but that also means that I can demand a higher fee. So, with tax representation, although it's harder to find those clients and get them, and I say harder because once you figure it out, it's not that bad, right? You put yourself in the right place. With that higher fee, now I don't have to work with as many people. So, according to data that ASTPS has, or wait, American Tax Problem Solvers, ATPS has, and a few other of the tax resolution gurus and groups, the average case for tax representation is worth $5,000. Okay. So you may not charge $5,000 to set up an installment agreement. So I always break everything down into 3 different phases. And yes, I know I'm not the only person that does this. I talked about in the webinar the tax representation journey, and there's a podcast where I go into more detail about it as well. But with that, I go through an investigation phase. I need to be the power of attorney so that I can see what information the IRS has and I can match that with what the client has told me. If there are any discrepancies, I need to get that straightened out with the client before I get on the phone with the IRS so I don't have a bunch of egg on my face, right? I need to know the whole story, and the best way that I can represent them is if I know the whole truth. Now, you have some taxpayers that are going to be malicious and try to get away with what they can. And then you have some that just need their memory jogged. So that's why I always do that part first. Then we go to get them into compliance. Now, with this client that I had that I was just referring to with the gambling stuff, the tax returns were filed, but what I noticed was a pattern. Even though there was a CPA that represented him in the audit and said, hey, you had underreported income, he kept going to that CPA, just like, it's a lost battle. But guess what? The next year, when it was time to file taxes, the CPA wasn't like, hey, do you have gambling winnings or gambling losses? So the pattern just kept repeating itself. So each year, even since the audit, we don't have the gambling winnings or losses on there. So I bring this to his attention like, hey, you have filed the returns, but you're technically not in compliance. The IRS is slow, not stupid, as my tax sister Lysandra says. And what will happen here If we don't amend these returns and get the winnings on there and then offset it with the losses, they are going to send you a letter. And then, if you agree with the letter and don't put the losses in, you are going to get hit with an accuracy related penalty. We had one year where there was around like $80,000 in gambling winnings that wasn't reported. One year was like over six figures in gambling winnings that weren't reported. Now, the fortunate thing for him, he had over six figures in gambling losses to help offset part of that. But part of getting him in compliance was simply just amending those returns. So sometimes it's not going to be that returns are missing. Sometimes they're done incorrectly and you have to go and correct that. So after the investigation, we find that out. It's like, hey, you keep getting the same letter. Let me see your last few tax returns. Okay, let's fix this before you get a letter, help you avoid this penalty, and see if we can get some of these other penalties removed. The next step is negotiation, which I may not even have to go into with the example I'm using today because he has money where he can pay a tax bill, but not a six-figure tax bill that he doesn't actually owe because the losses weren't factored in. So, with that, those three phases, you will charge accordingly for each phase based on the work and the complexity of that work. So, with that being said, $5,000 is not going to be the same across the board for each thing. All right. Because if you're only doing tax returns, they end up not even owing. Maybe you only had to do 3 years of tax returns. Let's just say those are $500 a pop. That's only $1,500. So that's going to bring your average down. When you figure out what type of service you want to offer and who you want to help, that helps direct your marketing, and then you can target those people, and that will help keep your average up. So Miss Dorothy says YouTube keeps interrupting with commercials. I'm sorry, I did not know they would actually do that while I'm live. Feel free to hop over to LinkedIn or Facebook. Um, but I will say sorry, kind of not sorry, because I am monetized. I get YouTube ad revenue, so I'm not too sorry. Joseph says, great morning, millionaires. JMO, good morning. Can you use a percentage based on what the client owes, or I'm assuming you're saying or not? So here's the thing with this. You guys got to make sure that you actually study what you're being governed under. So for CPAs, tax attorneys, and as enrolled agents, we are governed under Circular 230. We cannot charge contingency fees as enrolled agents. Okay, I'm going to say that again. And of course, there's an exception. But you can't say, okay, you owe $20,000, so I'm going to charge you $2,000. That's not how you do that. The exception to the contingency fee is we are allowed to charge a contingency fee for penalty abatement. So if I am able to get a $20,000 penalty removed, I can charge 30% of that. Now, JMO, with pricing, we have to be careful too, because we're not supposed to get together and so we can raise prices together. However, with pricing, you can have a set price for different tiers of debt for different services. So for example, if I'm removing a levy, the cost for me to remove a levy is going to be different from the cost of an installment agreement. A streamlined installment agreement, so one where I can set up without having to turn in any financial information, is going to be a different cost than a tiered installment agreement or a partial pay installment agreement, because that's going to take more work. So I do know people as well, and I mean, mine is kind of structured this way as well. If it is going to be, let's say, a streamlined agreement, but the debt is over $250,000, that's going to be more than a streamlined agreement that's only $100,000. Because for the one that's $250,000 or more, I still have to turn in financial information, so I have to do more work. So I have a price sheet that already has the prices at the different levels that I can share with the client to say, hey, after you're in compliance, if this is what your debt is and we're going for an installment agreement, this is the fee that you're going to end up paying to me. But yeah, so that may look like at different tiers, it may look like a percentage, but you can't just say, okay, well, you owe 90,000, so it's 9,000. I hope that makes sense. Joseph said Jesus. I wonder what part you said Jesus at. So LinkedIn, I got 9 folks on LinkedIn. Drop down in the comments. Let me know that you're still here. We got 4 people on Facebook, 10 on YouTube. Facebook, I don't think I've seen anything from you. I got 1 person that liked it. Thank you, Miss Austin. My other folks on Facebook, drop in the comments. Let me know what's up, what questions you have so far, and make sure you like or heart the video. So Gemma says makes sense. So pricing could vary. Absolutely. So every single thing that you do for tax representation isn't just going to cost $5,000, right? Kind of like with tax prep. So if you have a W-2 employee with children, their tax return is not going to be the same cost as somebody who's a sole proprietor scheduling a, or filing a Schedule C with children. If you have a single person that's W-2, you're not going to have the same pricing for a 2 adult family with children with 2 W-2s, right? That price is going to be different. So within my firm with tax preparation, I always did everything forms based. So depending on which forms I had to actually calculate to produce your tax return, that's how we figure the price. Very similar with tax representation. If I have to do a 433F in your financials, boom, it's going to be a certain price. If this is assigned to a revenue officer and I have to work with them specifically, this is the additional price that it's going to be because now I have to work with them. If I have to, if this is a payroll case and I'm dealing with the trust fund recovery penalty, that is definitely a different price because that is way more work, right? So, yes, the price is going to vary based in my firm based on the debt amount. It's going to vary based on what type of negotiation we're going for. It is going to vary based on whether or not it is assigned to a revenue officer. And then it's going to also vary based on whether I'm helping a corporation or if I'm helping a wage earner, right? Because again, that's different. It's a different amount of work that I have to do. Deja says, like your videos better on LinkedIn. What's different about it on LinkedIn? So I used to have a whole lot of people on LinkedIn when I started last August, but then like LinkedIn started glitching. And that's why I had more on Facebook. But then now on Facebook, people say they don't even get the notifications. So I don't know what's going on with Meta. Um, Kiana, it's nice to see you this morning. It's been a while since you've been on with me. Man, I asked the folks on Facebook to give me a thumbs up, and they dropped off. No, I'm just kidding. Just 1 person. Good to see you, Elizabeth. So let's look at this. Let's look at lien removal. Okay. So we have to do a transcript investigation. We have to remove a lien. Let's just say your average lien case is going to be 3,500. Okay. But that's what you want to do. You want to partner with people so you can remove liens. Okay. You're going to have a pretty okay time marketing to the tax lien list because you know these people have liens, right? Then what you could also do is look to see if these people have their homes for sale. Because check this out, if you have a tax lien, it's issued with the county clerk's office, right? So you have their name and address right there. Put the address in, see if it pops up on Zillow for sale. If it does, guess what? They can't sell their house without removing the tax lien. Guess who knows how to remove the tax lien? You do. And with that information, that's a perfect, you know exactly where to go, you know what service to offer. If the average lien removal is going to be $3,500, then that's when you need to reverse engineer. Okay, if I want to make $100,000, let me see here, because I don't know this math off the top of my head. This wasn't scripted. $100,000, we're going to divide that by 3,500. You need to work with 28 and a half people. So let's round that to 29 for good measure, right? So with that, you need 29 people to make $100,000. Now, a lot of you on here do taxes or you do bookkeeping, right? So if you're doing a $250 tax return or you're doing a $500 tax return, that's 200 people, 200 tax returns that you have to do. And it's usually between, the majority of that's going to be between and April 15th. But with tax liens, you can do 29 people throughout the whole year. So think about that too, because people are like, oh, tax representation is not for me. I just can't, it's stressful. 200 people within a 3.5 month period or 29 people throughout the whole year. Choose your hard, right? Choose your difficult. Now we take that up to the 5,000 because maybe all of these people on here, they also have like 2 years of tax returns to file. And I'm just throwing it out there that there's 750. I don't know what they would be because you have to charge accordingly to your what the price is, your skill level. Like you still have to be fair with that. So let's take that up to 5,000. Folks, do you realize you can make $100,000 working with 20 people? That's averaging less than 2 people a month that you could take your time and work with to make that $100,000. And like I said, yes, with the inflation, the economy, $100,000 doesn't spend the same way that it used to, but that $100,000 is still an accomplishment. It's nothing to scoff at, right? Making that first $100,000, if you're working a full-time job and starting this off, that may be the security you need to go ahead and leave your job. Okay. So with that, oh, Kiana says, I know I've been MIA lately. Well, I'm glad you're here. Uh, listen, I'm saying, Kiana says a no-brainer. 29 people, please. Amen. But again, like finding that, because I have a lot of people to be like, well, I only had to respond to a notice. I only charged $350, $500 for that. Okay. Even with the 500, we're back to having to work with 200 people. You have to find out who you want to work with and then focus on that, become an expert in that. And then that's when you can demand the higher price, right? So with me, I knew I wanted to be able to demand a higher fee. So are there more people that owe less than $10,000? Absolutely. But if I'm working with them, one, it doesn't make sense for them to pay me to be power of attorney. Two, the fee is going to be lower. So I might as well do 200 tax returns. Psych. Like I'm not. But you understand what I'm saying? So with me, if you are on LinkedIn, if you're watching videos on YouTube, you know that I always share I work with taxpayers who owe the IRS $100,000 or more and can't afford to pay it in full, or if they're being audited, or if they're actively being levied, because that calls out the folks that would be paying me a fee of 5K or more. Okay. So you most definitely have to figure out when you're looking at the different services that you can offer in an enrolled agent firm or a CPA firm or tax attorney, you have to figure out, okay, I do want to remove some tax liens, right? But I don't want to only focus on that. I would only pick 3 services that you're going to focus on, right? With those services, you need to reverse engineer, okay, I want to get 10 cases that are going to be $5,000. That's an accomplishment, by the way. So, if we have 10 cases at $5,000, that is going to put us at 50,000. Then maybe you want to do some lien removal. Then maybe you want to do some one-off phone consultations. The reason I say to pick 3 services doesn't mean you can only offer 3, but it's going to be very hard for you to market 3. Sometimes it's hard to market 2. And I'll give you an example here with myself. Right now, I'm talking to my fellow tax professionals, EAs, aspiring enrolled agents, because I have a mentorship program and I have a paid article subscription, which, by the way, GMO, I do have an article that has a template already with pricing in it that you can use as an example. But when I'm talking to you guys, sometimes taxpayers are like, do you still work with taxpayers? Can you still help me or do you only teach? I do both. I post about both, but with the funky way different algorithms are and stuff, you don't always know that. I have 2 separate businesses with the mentorship, the teaching, the writing, all of that's under America's Favorite EA, but I'm still the EA for the people at Bowens Tax Solutions. But with marketing, it has to be very distinct and it can get difficult to balance both. So I'm not restricting you saying that you can only offer 3 services. I'm just saying focus on 3. Shoot, focus on 1, because once you become known for that problem solving thing that you do within the tax representation world, people will come to you for all tax problems. Think about this. So I have not marketed tax preparation since probably 2020. Because I say that I help taxpayers who owe the IRS $100,000 or more, I always, every week, through Better Business Bureau, through Facebook, through my websites, always get leads for tax preparation. That's another thing, too. Even if you are going to still do tax preparation, focus on the big service that covers it all. Because if you fix somebody's tax problem, they're not going to want to go to somebody else to do their taxes. They're going to want to stay with you because you were the hero that fixed their situation, right? So if you are offering tax representation services, you don't even have to market tax preparation because they see that you fix tax problems. So they're going to assume that you also help people avoid them as well by doing the tax return. So let me get to some of these. So GMO says, great knowledge, very valuable. Thank you, kind sir. Yes. He says, I bet even the IRS employees owe taxes. And they do. Like, I have a former IRS employee right now that I help with an installment agreement. I have other federal employees as clients because it happens, right? So Joseph Perkins has a question. Question, Queen. Any wisdom for individuals just getting into the bookkeeping tax arena to be able to accelerate the process to get 500K? I'm career changing from culinary. I do remember you sharing that. So, what I would say again, I don't think you are an EA yet. I would I would market the big thing, right? So bookkeeping is something that people don't typically address until they're a certain size, but Bookkeeping in the end is actually going to bring you more money than a tax return if we're looking at the same client, right? Because you have a one-time service, the tax prep, then you have the bookkeeping. So for that, I would market bookkeeping and taxes, right? Because one doesn't automatically mean that you do the other. However, if no, when you become an enrolled agent, I would advise that you go ahead and market the tax representation because, again, that is the big thing. So, if you solve tax problems, the bookkeeping accurately and the tax preparation are going to be preventative care that people are going to assume that you already do. Um, I don't know if you want to be completely out of culinary food or what have you, but I would also recommend that you choose a niche. Food services, food services is something I stayed away from because it's a lot of moving parts. But if you already understand that language, if you already understand food cost and can relate to small business owners within the food industry, that may be a good niche for you to have because I tell you what, those folks right there usually run into payroll tax problems. And like I said, because that's way more involved, that is going to be a higher fee. So if you come in as the person who is the expert in the food industry because you've come from the food industry and you can help with payroll taxes, and now you can offer bookkeeping, tax services, and payroll services. Excuse me. I'm sorry. So you said no, not yet, but you're gonna get to studying because yeah, I know you're in the group. You're in there with me. So yeah, heck yes. So that's the other thing with your marketing, and I'm sorry because we are almost to an hour and I haven't even touched marketing. Um, there are marketing videos on this channel though, and what I will say as well, because I haven't actually plugged this in a while, so there is the How to Start an Enrolled Agent free group right now. If you go to americasfavoriteea.com and then go to groups, you will see it there. You have to request to join and then we will let you in. But if you do want some more targeted, focused articles on how to actually set up your marketing strategy, if you want a template similar to what I use to plan out my content, to focus on, okay, this is the type of client that I want. This is the type of marketing that I need to do. There is a paid article subscription that is $25 a month. It's like Netflix. You pay your $25 a month, you have access to all of the paid articles. You cancel the subscription, you lose access to all of the articles, right? And then there is a level above that, the Tax Pros Representation Journey. That is the EA Mentorship Program. Right now, don't join because I'm actually switching up some things there. Um, I liked what I had started doing, but I don't think the information that I was giving was sticking and it wasn't organized in a way where people could easily access it. So we're going to change up the dynamic of that. Those people will also receive the paid subscription with the articles, but I am going to be changing the price point with that because I'm going to do 2 live calls each month. There are 2 hours and one will be strictly case support. So if you're working on a case, you're kind of stuck, you have questions about that, you can bring those live on the Zoom, or if you have questions about your marketing, a different strategy, you can do that. And then the other call during the month will be me teaching on a requested topic. So right now we have the tax pro accounts that people are struggling with. We have folks that don't know how to do installment agreements. So some of the stuff that you guys see me teaching other places, that's what I'll be focused on. So it'll be like an hour, hour and a half of teaching, and then the rest will be Q&A. So I'll be showing the group that a higher tiered paid group that I'm revamping, like how to set up an installment agreement, like how to fill out a 433F, and then those will just be available in that group. Let me see. So Arthur asked a question. I'm sorry, I missed this. Can one provide tax lien removal services remotely from another country as an American CPA? So Arthur, let me ask you this for clarification. Are you an American CPA and you're just living in a different country? Because making those phone calls and things would not be as easy. You could still do the paperwork, but mailing that from overseas wouldn't necessarily be efficient. Um, so just let me know. Give me a little bit of clarity there. It can be done. It just wouldn't be as easy. Joseph says, thank you. So, guys, we are at 11:55. If you don't have any more questions, thanks, folks, for hanging with me on LinkedIn. And my folks here on YouTube and Facebook, thanks for hanging with me. If you guys don't have any other questions, I'm going to hop off of here. Again, if you are interested in starting your own enrolled agent firm, make sure you go to americasfavouriteea.com, join the group How to Start an Enrolled Agent Firm. It is under the groups. So you have the hamburger button with the 3 lines. You're going to click on that and go to groups. If you have more detailed questions, I most definitely am going to send you the link to the paid article subscription, and stay tuned because I will be sharing news about the revamp of the other group and the different price point. And like I said, the twice monthly calls and what will come with that bundle. Elizabeth, you are welcome always. Thanks for hopping on. Last but not least, I did forget this because I sent it out to my email list, which if you're not on there, I don't know why not. If you have a specific topic that you would like to see me cover on a Tuesday, if you have the Wix app, send it to me on the Wix app. If you have joined me on Spaces, if you're on the email list, send me an email. I do have like a running list of different topics you guys want me to cover. But the thing about it, my folks that do the super chats, the stars on Facebook, or they're the paid subscribers, their topics do have preference. So in the past, Elizabeth has been a star giver on Facebook. I appreciate it. If Elizabeth were to request a topic, that would take precedence over Joe Schmo who just hops on. All right. I would still listen to Joe Schmo and see if other people had requested it. But the people who do contribute, like the stars, the super thanks, chats, all that, I do appreciate that. And that's the one little perk that I can give for you guys and your support. But that really is all from me. I am working on a series, so I will take you guys through to show you how I actually made my first 100,000 over a 12-month period, and then how I did it in the calendar year back in 2019, 2020. So if you're not on the email list, get on there. If you're not subscribed to YouTube, make sure that you are subscribed there. And my folks on LinkedIn, thank you for the follow. You guys have a wonderful Tuesday.